In this video, I will be demonstrating the use of JavaScript to connect to an API. Specifically, we will be connecting to the Reddit API to pull down some of the popular contents of a subreddit. As it sits right now, we have a HTML page that looks like the following. Basically a header, a subreddit API reader, please enter the name of a subreddit, and then we have a text input box. The HTML that represents that web page is right here. You'll notice that we have the Bootstrap CSS going. We have some empty JavaScript tags. Here's the header that was seen on the page. And here's the input type text. So the text input, the ID for that is subreddits. And what I'm going to do is I have a function associated with key downs, which is do stuff. And we'll get to what this is in just a little bit. So to start off with, what I want to have happen is that I want to be able to type something over here, in this case the name of a subreddit, hit the enter key, and when I do that, I want the contents of that subreddit to populate down here under this input box. Now first things first, we'll notice that there is a reference error. Do stuff is not defined because I don't have a function for that yet. So here's what I want to have happen. I don't actually want a button, right? I mean, I think it's more natural to just type stuff out and hit enter and have something happen on a web page. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to monitor for the enter key. And once the enter key is pressed, what we're going to do is we're going to take whatever the user has typed in to this box and then send it to the Reddit API. So to do that, we're going to have to write our first function, and that function is going to be called do stuff. Now obviously this function name is not very precise. We definitely want more precise function names, but just for shits and giggles, let's just call it do stuff. Now please note that in this function, or when this function is invoked on key down, I pass this. This actually is a keyword that refers to the current element, and so basically this input type element, this input type HTML element and its contents are going to be passed to this function, and so this function is going to receive that HTML element. Think of this in the context of the Java this operator, this referring to either the current object. In this case, this refers to the current element. I'm going to check if a key press event occurs, and if the key press event occurs and the value of that key press event is enter, I want something to happen. I want to get the value of this current element. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log. At the moment, I'm just going to console log the value. And so just refreshing this. Let's say I type in UGA and I hit enter. We can see on the console log we have UGA typed out, and so that means I can get the value of the current element, which is basically what I want. Now this value refers to a subreddit that might exist on Reddit, and so what I might be interested in doing is I might be interested in sending the value to the Reddit API. Now I'm going to break up, I'm going to decompose the different tasks that we have to do into different functions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a function called get subreddit data, or maybe just get subreddit, and I will give it the elements value. And so that's the do stuff function. Now, this means that I need to have another function over here, which is get subreddit, that receives some sort of element value once again. Now, let's make sure that we actually are here. Console.log ple. Right, I'm just going to clear this out. And let's say I write something like magic. There we go. Magic is printed out, part of line 13. Line 13 is here, where I have this function, and that's running console.log. Great. Now, instead of console logging this, what I want to do is I want to retrieve some data from Reddit. Now, for this purpose, we've got to rely on the Reddit API. The Reddit API is pretty complex, but just to give you an example, so here is the Reddit API. Here's the Reddit page for the subreddit magic. Now, what I can do is, if I throw a .json after this, this is what I get back. I get the contents of that Reddit page as, as JSON, as like a structured text, right? And what I will do is I will get this JSON down and kind of, parse through it and pick up the pieces that I'm interested in, right? And so really to the element, what we're going to do is add .json, get the contents of the subreddit down, and then start parsing through the data, right? So to do that, if there is an element that comes in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fetch function. The fetch function in JavaScript allows us to connect to APIs. And so I'm going to connect to https ://www.reddit.com/r. Now, to this, I want to add the element, and to that element, what I want to add is .json. And so this is the fetch function. Now, if the fetch function successfully executes, I want something to happen. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, what do I want to happen after this function, like, in a way, goes through? Then I want to do something after this data comes in. After this function gives me a response, I am going to return the JSON of that response. Now, the question is, where does this JSON go? Well, this goes to another function, and these functions that I'm writing, they're called anonymous functions. So where does that JSON go? The JSON goes to another function, and what that other function is going to do is it's going to try to parse through the JSON response. Now, I could actually write the entire parser within these curly braces over here, but I'm just gonna do that, right? I'm just gonna send it to the parse data function. Okay. Now, let's see, like, what does this JSON actually look like? So in addition to parse data JSON, what I'm going to do is I want to console.log that JSON so that we know what that JSON data, like what's the data that's going to be coming out of here, right? So I have the response, I get the JSON of the response, and then I'm sending it to another function, but what does it actually look like? So let's refresh this, and let's say I type in here UGA. Whoops, parse data is not defined. Okay, so I'm just gonna have this function parse data. That, I mean, it's not really doing anything right now, but it has some data there. Okay, so I've console logged the JSON. What is that JSON look like? As you can see, it's basically a listing of a bunch of children, right? So data children, which is an array of 27 different things, and you can see those 27 different things from 0 to 26, and each of those elements has some data, and some of them have to do with approved by, author, banned, domain is, the link flare, media only, the permalink, the subreddit name, whether it's a thumbnail, the URL, they should have a title. And so there are all of these pieces of information about each of those subreddits, right? So just in case, if I did UGA over here, got rid of the JSON, like the first one that I opened had to do with, what is it? Questions related to registration at UGA, class questions mega thread, which is really this one right here, class questions mega thread. The first one posted by Valadium, and you will see that if I go up here, you should see author Valadium, right? And so the data is coming down, and now what I've got to do is in that parse data function in JavaScript, be able to go through all of the data coming in and pick up the pieces I want. So, so the data is coming in, and if I wanted to make sure that the data is coming in, I could, the data is coming in properly over here. I could just console log data, and again, just do UGA. Yeah, there we go. So the data is coming in as it should. Now, here's the thing. I need to, as I can see, I've got to figure out like the path to these children elements, right? So the data is coming in as data, but what if I did console log data, and within the data, I have another, like, let's say a nested data structure called data. So if I did data.data, what do I get when I do a console log? And so this is kind of the way you figure out, okay, how do I get to where I want to, where the actual meat of the data is. There we go. And so I have data, and so you can see that initial data nested structure is gone, and so I have children. So if I did children, data dot children, and then I'm just going to clear this out again. UGA is my reference. There we go. I have a list of like 27 different things, right? And so here's what I can do. And now what I could maybe do is write a loop to go through 27 to this thing 27 times, pick up each piece of what I want, right? So simplest way, data dot children dot length. The length property will tell me how many children there are. Right? Data.children, and so basically this thing over here and the length of this, which is 27. I mean, I can just see if that gives me what I'm kind of looking for. The length should give me like 27. As you can see, I have the value 27 there. So it goes from 0 to 27 and 0 less than 27. And what I can do is I can start picking up parts of it, right? So let's say I don't want the length. And so in the 0th element, there is a data element, and within that data element, there are other sub elements, right? And so what I can do is, let's say I pick up this title, right? So I can have let title is equal to data dot children, but I want the ith children in this case, so I want the 0 children dot, again sub element, 0th element's data, and I want the title. And so I'm just going to see whether this works. Console.log. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have to change it. So I need to make sure that this works the way I think it does. So I'm going to again refresh this, clear this out. There we go. Well, the first console log data gives me all of these 27 different things, but then I see a console log title. I see all the different titles. I should see 27 different times, which I think I do see them over there. So this system is working, and so I'm just going to stick with the system. So I can grab the title. I can grab, and I think kind of the path is the same. I think it's alter. And so maybe I want to do something with the URL, like maybe a link. The text of the tag, or the text of the article, or the text of the post, sorry. Brains are firing. Now, one of the things I'm also going to do is I'm actually going to grab some unique identifier for each of those posts. So let's see what is a unique identifier I can find for each of those posts. If I take a look at that, what do I have? Well, what's this? ID. There's an ID element, there's a name element, okay. Maybe an ID or a name would be valuable. Let's see whether ID and name apply to others as well. I have an ID. Is this ID different from the first ID? I think it is. I think ID and or name seems to be reasonable. So why don't I just do ID? Let ID equal to the same ID. And so what I'm doing over here is I'm getting the components I'm interested in, and I want to figure out how to kind of put these components, just like lay them out over here, right? 27 different components. But I'm not going to do that in this function. So the purpose of this function was only to parse the data. Now what I want to do is I want to structure that data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let the HTML version, so we're going to have some HTML that takes all this data and structures it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to construct a card. Like, I'm a big fan of bootstrap cards. I'm going to put all of these elements in a card in some layout, and this card or this function is going to take the title, the author, the URL, the text, and the ID, and it's going to take all of this and construct a card together. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to take this card or take this HTML and add it to, as you can see over here, I have a div called Reddit cards, and so I'm going to kind of go document dot get element by ID, and I'm going to get the Reddit cards, and to this to the inner HTML property, I'm going to add this HTML that I've constructed. So what I now need to do is I need to write that construct card function. And so I'm going to have a function called construct card, and this function takes has a lot of parameters or arguments, whichever you prefer. Title, author, URL, the text, and the ID. Now, this card, it can be constructed, whichever way you choose. I already have this card constructed. I already have the HTML for this card put together. I'm just going to use that HTML. I'm going to copy and paste that in here right now. So I have just pasted the card for I have just pasted the HTML that will render the card that contains title, author, URL, ID, and the text of the Reddit thread. So this really should be all of it. Let's see whether this starts working. And there you go. So I have typed in a subreddit name, and now I have a variety of different cards over here that represent different elements of the data that comes from the Reddit API. This is a very simple and straightforward use of JavaScript to connect to an API. Obviously, this is just an example. Thank you very much for your time.